This is my Lslp for Ed 634. The lesson plan will take place in a general education world history class. The class is made up mostly of 11th graders, although there are some seniors taking the class again. There are some students in the class that have special needs, and momentarily I will address those special needs and the accommodations and the assistive technology that they will receive uh, during the lesson. Um, but first, I wanted to give you guys kind of an overview of what will be going on. Um, it's kind of again a combination of an overview of the lesson and then some small examples of some instructions or things that I'd want to talk about with the students. The first day, we would be doing a PowerPoint on the Korean Peninsula and looking at some pictures from the demilitarized zone and analyzing them and kind of looking at some of the differences between the two countries on the Korean Peninsula. And then the second day, they're going to be watching a video inside North Korea. And then the second or the third and the fourth day, um, they're going to be working with on a chapter out of a book that they'll be reading and answering some questions to. Um, as far as the accommodations go, one of the students that needs accommodations in assistive technology is an ASD student. He has Asperger's. He will be given recording devices to help him with notes. He will also be given have access to a laptop if he chooses to do his assignments to type them up. Um, he will also be given ahead of time notes for any PowerPoints or lectures, and I'll also give him I'll give his teacher, his autism teacher, will get copies of the pictures that we'll be looking at in class. So if he chooses to, he can kind of have some prior knowledge as to what's going on, so he can contribute to the discussion if he chooses to and doesn't feel pressured and rushed for time. The second student that needs accommodations in the class is hard of hearing, so I would be wearing a microphone. Also during the video, there will be closed captions during the video. Those would be her accommodations. She needs no other accommodation in terms of extended time or typed up notes. Okay, so the way that I would start the lesson off on day one, don't have access at the time to a smart board or anything like that. So I just quickly overview what I would do on the first day. It would be a PowerPoint. They would start off by to kind of get them interested, seeing a picture of North and South Korea from space at night, seeing the vast difference between the amount of light that comes from the north and that comes from the south. Hopefully that would get them interested in learning why that is the way that it is. The second day, students would come in, and this is kind of what they would hear from me. So we're gonna watch a video today, and there's a worksheet that goes along with it that you're gonna get momentarily. And the video is called "Inside North Korea." It's a great video. It's 7 years old. The information in terms of who the leader is, Kim Jong Il was the leader then. We've learned about him yesterday. His son is now the leader. But even though the leader is different, it's essentially the same society, it's the same class structure and things like that. So the important information of what life is like there, you can get out of it. So the video follows around an eye surgeon. He cures or fixes cataracts. People that can't see once these are fixed can see afterwards. And Lisa Ling's crew for National Geographic they follow him into North Korea, and they document some of his work. So through the questions on the worksheet, remember I always tell you guys that I don't just do this to keep you busy. I do it because I think it kind of funnels the information that I want you to take out of this. And then we're going to talk about some of the things after the video is over. We're going to go over some of the things that I think are important, and we're going to discuss a couple of key points at the end. I want you to pay attention to what life is like there, and I want you to also pay attention to how people act when they think they're being watched. Okay? And specifically, I want you to pay attention to the end of the video when the people who have had eye surgery, how they react to what happens when it's done. Okay, so that would be my instructions for the students watching the video. Once the video is concluded, we would move on and we would say, now, we'll go over here any questions from the video that you missed here in a second, but there's one thing that I think everybody kind of noticed at the end of that video. And that was when the people had the bandages taken off their eyes and they could see for the first time in years the joy that they felt and who that joy was directed towards. It was directed towards who? Right, it was directed towards their leader. Not the eye surgeon, not anybody else. Their leader, who was not there, who had nothing to do with it. Okay? I heard some gasps. I heard some people kind of questioning how that could be, or comments like, no way, you've got to be kidding me. And why do you think that is? You know, why do you think people were thanking their leader instead of thanking the eye surgeon? Okay, that's an interesting question, and it's not a simple answer. And you know, some people will say, "Oh, they're scared or they're brainwashed." But the next thing that we're going to look at explains it a lot better. It'll help you understand why people react the way that they do. And I'm going to hand out a chapter of a book. We got it right here. So I'll hand this out. And before you read it, there's a few things that I want you guys to know. The chapter's called Tainted Blood. Think about what that might mean. Okay? There's some terms that are going to come up in this chapter. Okay? You're going to deal with the class structure, and you're going to have something called a core class, a wavering class, and a hostile class. Those are essentially the three main class structures inside of North Korea. And it was set up by the original leader of North Korea, Kim Il-sung. And the way that he picked those classes and who went into those classes was specifically based on how he thought you viewed his government. Okay, so if you were a core member, you were one of the good guys. He thought you were all right. If you were wavering, like, I'm not so sure. And if you were hostile, you kind of had the lowest of the low lives. So I want you to keep those things in mind when you're reading. You're going to read the Tainted Blood chapter. It's going to be a couple of different stories within that chapter of people who are not necessarily in that core class or wavering class, but hope to move up to that. And as you read the chapter, you can kind of get a sense of their chances for that happening. Okay, so now the students would, it's like I think I've said it's about a 17 to 18 page chapter. I'd give them this chapter to read in class because I want them to read it and I want to make sure they have time and they're not doing it. I don't want to leave it to chance that something comes up at home or they don't want to do it. So I'll give them class time. 35, 40 minutes probably is what they would need to read it in class. And then the following day I would have them work on answering questions that I came up with. Again, things that I think are important that they need to get out of it. And then work with groups of 3 or 4 to come up with the answers to the questions, discuss them in small groups, and then take that to a large group discussion. And that would pretty much sum it up. And what we would hopefully find out, like from watching the movie and then reading the article, is that uh, people in this country act the way they do out of fear. And they would those two sources demonstrate that pretty well.